You're listening to Filter Free America.
Well, Filter Free America is where I wanna be. Arriving on the shining black shores of oil-soaked Lady Liberty, with justice not just blind, but deaf, dumb, and unkind. Thank God I'm filter free. It's Filter Free America.
Motherfucker!
Hello, Filter Free America listeners. You are back with the Filter Free America podcast, blasting into your ear. I don't want to say blasting. Should I say blasting? It sounds like a porn reference. You blast somebody in the face. You only, I guess you could technically blast something very loud. But however you're listening to it, it's going into your ear canals, right? I'm pretty sure maybe there's like the random person who is listening via what is that called for like deaf people where they type the shit and on the bottom of the screen. So I don't know what that's called, but you know what I'm talking about, right? The deaf people words. Right? That kind of thing, which would be a very interesting way to consume the Filter Free America podcast because I talk a lot about masturbation and bodily fluids, semen, fecal matter, pee, urine, whatever. I would like to see those words being typed out on a screen. You know, that would be new ground, I guess, for typing. Maybe not, probably not, but whatever. I would still like to see "come" typed with exclamation points following it, like "come, come!" Exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. Welcome to the show. This is the Filter Free America podcast. Hope you're ready for that, but sometimes it gets off the rails like that kind of quickly. I'm going to let you guys know, we got kind of a new topic here, a new topic in this episode. Previous episodes, I spent a lot of time talking about crime, corruption, conspiracy, things of that nature. A lot of our episodes revolve around those topics, but I wanted to change gears. I wanted to bring you something a little bit different. And to be quite honest, crime, corruption, and conspiracy often fall into this topic. And the topic for this episode is love. Yeah, love, right? A love story gone wrong. Okay? The guest is comedian and podcaster Dan Bublitz. I love saying his last name. Dan Bublitz. Sounds like a sex move. Oh, I'm going to get her in the bedroom and I want to, stick her in and give her the, and then I'm going to do the Bublitz with her. Yeah. Bublitz all over her face. Anyway, Dan's story is a story of heartbreak and relationship dysfunction. Poor decisions, fights, cheating, fake marriages, and even threats to falsify rape charges. Yes. All of that is intertwined in this story. Disclaimer, this is a story as told to me by one person. A story like this, of course, has two sides, and this podcast only has one of those sides. So just fair warning, take what you're hearing with that understanding, right? As well as I know Dan, I don't think he was being dishonest with me in any kind of way, but I feel it's important to put that disclaimer out there that we're talking about the crumbling of a relationship. And, there have been cases out there where one person says one thing, one person says another, but whatever. Was there anything else? It seems like there's, oh yeah, that's right. The story also includes erectile dysfunction. I don't know why that's important, but considering my normal fare here on the Filter Free America podcast, why wouldn't I make a point to alert you guys to a conversation of erectile dysfunction coming up? Let's talk about real fast some of Dan's promotion points here. If you want to know more about Dan, I'm sure you do, please go to danbublitz.com. I'll spell that last name for you just because I love to spell it too. As much as I love to say it, I also like to spell it. It's Bublitz. Bublitz. danbublitz.com, Or if you want to go directly to his podcast, you just go to artofbombingpod.com. Artofbombingpod.com. That is the name of his podcast. If you want to find it on your podcast, platform of choice, just search for, you could probably search for his name, and you could also enjoy saying it, Dan Bublitz, or you could search for Art of Bombing. Search that. I'm pretty sure it's going to pop up. What else for us? Real fast, let me mention the sponsor of the Filter Free America podcast. Our one and only true sponsor is simplewebsite.us. 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 They are the guys and gals that you turn to if you would like somebody to help you or completely build for you a website using the Squarespace website builder. Yeah, they have a very unique business model, right? They've mastered the art of building websites on Squarespace, something that's advertised as being easy to do and something you can do on your own. But again, if you're somebody like me and who has limited skills when it comes to a computer, sometimes you don't even want to take time to try to figure it out on your own. You want somebody else to help you, or you just can't do it. Go to simplewebsite.us. Simplewebsite.us will be more than happy to give you a hand with your website on Squarespace. And check this out. Let's have some fun with the sponsor, okay? Here's what I want you guys to do. Go to simplewebsite.us, right? Go there, and if you look on the website, there's going to be a little tab that you can click that says email a question. Email a question to the good folks at simplewebsite.us, okay? This is what you do. You go there, you click on that tab to email a question, and then I want you to ask a question about building a website, but it's going to be a fake website, okay? And I want it to be the most ridiculous website that you can think of, okay? Could be, I don't know, like I want to build a website about my dildo collection. I want to show the world my hundreds and hundreds of dildos, some used, some not used, and I want to display it in a website form. How much is that going to cost for me to do that? Something like that. You get what I'm saying? Yeah, something. The more disturbing, the more grotesque, the more sexually repugnant, the better, right? Like, hey, I'm a photographer and I specialize in assholes, and I like to take the pictures of the assholes, and I want to make a website about asshole pictures. Can you guys help me out? Right? Something like that. Right? You don't have to use the accent because you're typing shit. I'm just doing that just for the theater of the podcast, okay? But whenever, I want you to email that question, okay? And if I get enough of those in there, right? Let's say, let's shoot for 50 emails. 50 emails, okay? That's all I ask. 50 of you guys or gals go in there and make a bogus email, a question request about a horrific type of website. I'm gonna talk to the good folks over there, and they'll let me know which. They're gonna send me all these emails. They're gonna forward all of them to me, and then I'm gonna pick the best one, and I'm gonna give you $100. $100, right? It's a 1 in 50 chance to get $100. $100, right? And matter of fact, I'm going to make this twofold. You get a chance to win there, $100 there, and I'm going to do a second $100 contest. Second $100 contest, and this is going to be for people who are on iTunes specifically. I apologize if you listen anywhere else. I'm going to make some other contests coming up. I've got some merch contests coming up in the whole 9 yards, but we're going to start out with iTunes because quite frankly, they're the most important when it comes to podcasting. Okay. Now, if you listen on to the Filter Free America podcast on iTunes, go there right now. And leave a rating, 5-star rating, and write a review, right? And you make the most ridiculous review possible, okay? Like, I love listening to the Filter Free America podcast when I masturbate because Joy's voice is very stimulating to my erections, right? Something like that, okay? And I am going to pick the best between now and what is this? The end of this month, whatever this month is, November. And the winner, the best review that I get there, I'm also going to contact you and give you $100. So yeah, that's 2 ways to win $100. $200 I'm giving away. So take that. Simplewebsite.us. Go there, leave the email about a ridiculous website, or go to iTunes, or do both. You could win, theoretically, you could win $200. Okay. Maybe you're just one person. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe there's just one listener who is motivated enough and you do both things and then you both win, or you win both the $100 prizes. Either way. All right, let's get this episode kicked off. It's a little bit of a longer one, but it's a very entertaining one. And I think it's one that so many of us can relate to, right? I mean, everybody wants to think they have a great relationship, but I think every relationship has varying degrees of dysfunction in it. And I like to think the ones that are try the hardest to project an image that it's not are probably the craziest motherfucking ones. So respect to Dan for coming in and sharing his dysfunctional relationship, marriage story. Okay. So we need a title. We always need a title because for some reason I started doing that. Now I just can't get myself out of it because we're doing it every episode now. We're going to title this one Cheating Brides and Failed Marriage with Dan Bublitz. Yeah, there we go. That just really kind of seals the deal of what this episode's about. Okay, so here we go. Cheating Brides and Failed Marriage with Dan Bublitz right here on Filter Free America. Let's go.
I don't love you anymore.
A relationship, I think, is like a shark. You know, it has to constantly move forward or it dies.
I really don't want to be married to you anymore.
Did I do something? Did I not do something?
When I look at you lately, I just want to smash your face in.
We should break up or whatever.
I don't love you anymore. Goodbye.
Is there somebody else? Another man? 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 Another man?
All right. So start off by telling me, how did this relationship come together between you and who we're going to refer to as your ex?
Well, we actually met in Watertown, South Dakota. That's where we both lived at the time. And I had owned a comic book store when we met. And she came in to check out the place because she was big into anime and manga and stuff like that. And what
is manga? What is
manga? It's basically anime, but in book form.
Okay.
I mean, and the books are like backwards. So like you read them, they read their books from right to left instead of left to right.
So they're just like, printed in reverse.
So they're printed in reverse, really.
Okay. I've always heard the term. I just never knew what it was.
Yeah. So that's what a manga is. And at that time I was married, and she was attractive, very attractive when she came in. Everybody noticed her because obviously you're in a comic book shop. And even back then, now I think.
Does that work like comedy though? Like, because like there's like comedy attractive and then there's like real world attractive. So like, is there comic book attractive and then?
Well, I feel like yeah, like any woman that comes into a comic book shop is attractive to nerds, but
there's a vagina among us.
Yeah, exactly. What is that? I've never seen one of those. That's a lot of it. But now there's a lot more. I feel like there's a lot more women and females that are into nerd culture. Right. Well, nerd culture in general is becoming a lot popular. More popular than it was even then, which was like 10 years ago when I owned the shop. But yeah, so at the time I was married and she came in and and we had a lot of mutual friends because it's a smaller town and nerds run in the same circles. I mean, that's like we don't have we all kind of had so we ended up having a lot of mutual friends or whatever.
Right.
But anyway, I was married at the time, so didn't think anything of it. A couple of years later, my business was closed, and then my wife and I at that time got divorced, and I became friends with her because we were kind of going through a similar situation. She was going through a divorce or a separation. I just went through a divorce. We had a lot of mutual friends, and we were in a smaller town.
Was the divorces you guys were getting, were those both your first marriages?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well. Yeah. I think it was her. Yeah, it was her first. And it was my first. I was married actually like 12 years. So,
wow.
So it was like a big adjustment for me.
How old are you?
I'm 41. I just turned 41.
Okay, you look younger.
I do look a lot younger, but
good for you.
I got married super young. That was the other thing.
Really? How young?
So dumb. Like I was 19. Ugh. I know.
Holy
yeah.
fuck.
Now, anytime I hear anybody that's like in their early 20s talk about wanting to get married. I'm like, no, don't
Don't
go
do
live your
anything
life.
official till you're like 25.
Wait,
25 would be the
even
minimum.
then, I'm like, wait till you're 30 or something. Yeah, go enjoy your 20s because you'll regret it. I mean, and a lot of people, I feel like a lot of people that get divorced are people that got married really young. You know what I mean? Because same thing that happened with us is we kind of grew apart. That's, you know, we were kids and then we grew up and realized we weren't right for each other.
Yeah, that's because you change as people, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You're not-
exactly. And you don't.
Thank God I'm not who I was at 19.
Yeah,
Holy shit.
yeah, exactly. And you don't take the time, like when you rush into marriage. And in the Midwest, getting married and having family and buying houses is what we're taught. Like that's the Midwest American dream. You know, that's what what you're pushed for. You know, so it was easy to like fall into that.
Right.
But people don't take the time to like get to know themselves and learn who they are and who they want to be and things like that. And that was our situation. So, you know, like I said, we just grew up and grew apart. So I went through this divorce, which meant now I'm single. I don't have kids. You know, I have a good job. I have, you know, I make pretty decent money. And now I'm like, all right, let's go out and have some fun. So I'm going out a lot. Also dealing with the demons from getting divorced and trying to adjust to that, which probably wasn't good. I kind of took alcohol as a crutch, and so I was going out way more than I ever did, drinking all the time. But we started running into each other because she was doing the same thing, going out a lot, being more social. And then, not to mention, like I said, we had a lot of
Just
mutual
two
friends.
Hot divorcees on the hot streets of fucking South Dakota.
Watertown, South Dakota. Look out. Look out. Hot on the town. But then, because we had a lot of mutual friends, we just kind of started hanging out. You know? And I kind of had a crush on her. It was funny, though, because I was also still in a weird place where, like, I had a crush on her, but also I didn't feel like I should be dating anybody because my divorce was still fresh. And so, like, I tried setting her up with some other friends of mine.
You tried to give it away to somebody else?
Yeah, I did.
Holy
A couple
shit.
different friends. And, you know, because they kind of had, one of them kind of had a crush on her. And then another friend of mine ended up kind of dating her for a little bit, but that didn't work out or whatever. And then we actually, we were friends with benefits way before we ended up dating. That was the other thing. Like, we kind of became really best friends. We're like, we were hanging out all the time, you know.
You guys just ended the night fucking on a pile of comic books.
Yeah, we went out drinking and came home one night and you know, I had a lot of, at this time I was kind of, you know, I really had feelings for her, and because of that I was like, I need to leave. She was very clear that she didn't want anything. She didn't want a relationship. And I wanted to respect that, and I didn't want to like risk ruining the friendship, you know, by trying to pressure her into dating me or any of that shit that dumb guys that are in love do, you know. So I was like, you know what? I got to go home. And of course, this is like 3 or 4 in the morning. We went out drinking, then we came back to her place. We had breakfast, and now I'm like, all right, I'm leaving. And then she just like mauled me. And then we started hooking up a lot.
Starting to flow. So how long after the hooking up did it become like a relationship, or did it become a relationship?
It did become a relationship, but it was more
left?
of a, I mean, and at this point now people could tell like there was something, we were more than just friends. They could tell. I mean, we were already hanging out a lot, but then she had to move out of her apartment. She got behind on her rent and she needed a place to stay. And I was like, well, if you want to move in here, you can be, you know, third roommate. Your daughter can have this extra room. We can turn this basement area into a bedroom, whatever, you know. And then, you know, as long as my other roommate was cool with it, he didn't care, you know, whatever. Right. And so she moved in, and she had her own space, but yeah, she's pretty much sleeping with me, you know, and her daughter was kind of aware of it or whatever. And then a couple months after
was this like a mutual thing? Like she's paying rent, or is she
trying to?
Okay.
Trying to, but
I'm just trying to gauge, like,
she's
how much of this was like taking care of her.
That was what it was supposed to be. She was moving in as a roommate, was supposed to be paying rent. I wasn't as strict with it. I mean, I really wasn't even strict with any of my roommates. But long story long, she was supposed to be moving in as a roommate and paying rent.
Right.
And then it just kind of evolved into a relationship.
Now you're together. You guys are in a relationship. Eventually you plan to move to Cali.
Yep.
And you told me it was about 6 months into your relationship.
Yep.
When you made that move.
Yep. So prior to us dating, and I decided, after I got divorced, I decided I was going to try stand-up comedy. It was something I always kind of wanted to pursue.
You said after the divorce?
After the divorce. I made that decision that I was going to try it. It was something I always wanted to do, but never did because I was married, doing the, job, that kind of stuff,
right,
or whatever. So I just didn't do it. And now I was at a point in my life where I was like, I'm not getting any younger. I can't wait around. I'm going to try this. So that was another reason our friendship developed, because I was rehearsing to do this open mic. I signed up for an open mic. They only did it monthly, and you had to sign up in advance. And I signed up of June. No, maybe it was July. But either way, I signed up for the September open mic. I wanted to give myself some time to be ready and prepped or whatever. And so I was writing and rehearsing my 5-minute set. And so I was rehearsing a lot with her. She was like my audience, and she was giving me feedback and that kind of thing. So now we're in our relationship. She wants to move back to California because that's where her family is. I think I'm the greatest comedian, so I'm ready to move to L.A. Retrospect,
right,
was not ready to be out there. I learned that right away.
Yeah.
I still don't think I'm ready, and I've been doing comedy 10 years now almost.
The longer I do comedy, the less I think I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, exactly. I feel the same way. And so we devised this plan that we were going to move together, but this was before we were a couple. We were, we were going to split the cost of a U-Haul. I was going to drop her off in San Diego, and then I was going to go up to LA. That was the plan. Then we started dating, and so she still wanted to move out to California. I figured San Diego was only a couple hours from LA, so still work for comedy. So we just decided to move, and that's what we did.
Did you have any? I know her family was there, but did you have any roots there at all? Did you?
I actually, and I still do. I have an uncle that lives there.
Okay.
He's been in the Navy. He made a career out of the Navy and then retired from the Navy. And when he retired, he was in San Diego, and he's been living there pretty much ever since.
Right.
But it's not like a close. I mean, he's an uncle, but we're not like super close or anything. We talk, but it's very distant.
Here, I'm trying to gauge the degree of bad decisions, and when I ask you this, knowing I did this myself in many different ways and different things. But did you plan? Like, did you apply for jobs before you got there? Did you have any something set up for you to get?
The only thing we had set up is that her parents were going to let us stay with them until we got on our feet and could get our own place. So we had that, and I looked around at jobs a little bit, and because my background was in logistics, I did material control. There were a lot because it's a big military, San Diego's a big military town, so there's a lot of jobs involving logistics and material controls and things like that. I thought for sure I was going to have no problem finding a job out there with my experience. Like, I worked for the same place for 10 years, so I had lots of experience. I had the longevity of one company, all the things companies look for when somebody moves from the Midwest, the typical, hardworking,
so
loyalty and all that shit.
What was the just a side note, what was the reality of it as the job market there as pertains to your
reality? I mean, the reality was there's a lot of jobs there, but I never got any interviews.
Really?
Which surprised me. And I don't know, even now, I still apply for jobs and hardly ever get, I've been up here in the cities since April, and I've got a job, but it was pretty much the only job that gave me an interview and then hired me. Like, every other job, I've had a couple interviews, but never panned out. And still, compared to the number of jobs I've applied for versus the number of interviews I've gotten, hasn't been really great. Okay. So I don't know if I'm just terrible at resume building skills, which that might be the thing. Like, my resume just sucks. I don't know. I still haven't figured it out. Or it could just be I'm not a regular job kind of guy anymore. I don't know.
All right, let's fast forward a little bit. You get there, you're staying with her family, right?
Yep, we're staying with her family. I'm looking for a job. I got a temporary job.
And you guys are together officially now?
Yeah.
Okay.
By this time, we were together before we moved.
At this point, and again, I'm not picking on you because I'm looking at failures in my past relationships and mistakes that I've made, and it mirrors your stories, very similar. But did you, in retrospect now, looking back, were there any red lights about what you're about to tell me in this story? Was there anything?
Oh, yeah, there was definitely some things that I should have questioned. But, yeah.
What were some of the stressors that you were dealing with?
Had the blinders on, you know? Well, one thing, she slipped on the ice and got hurt, and so she wasn't working.
Okay.
And when she wasn't working...
Was this legitimate, or was this like, oh, I'm hurt, I can't work now? Was it one of those things?
Well, I think it was maybe a little of both.
Okay.
Like, I don't feel like she didn't seem like a person that really liked working. I mean, she was a hard worker, especially when she was single. She had like 2 jobs, working all the time to try to make it or whatever. But I feel like when she moved in, there was like that a relief of, you know, okay, he's not necessarily trying to take advantage of me, but knowing she could. You know what I mean? Like knowing that I wasn't going to put pressure on the rent. So there's like relief or whatever. But I'm sure, she did go to the doctor, and the doctor told her she shouldn't work, and she had to go do like, you know, chiropractic appointments and all kinds of shit like that.
So it was something substantial.
So yeah.
Fair enough.
I feel like maybe it probably lasted longer than it needed to, but I'm not a health professional, so I can't say for sure. You know, so there was that. I started, you know, kind of taking care of her and her daughter, and then, you know, there were some other things, but you know, you have them blinders on. Oh, you're in love.
Is there fights at this level?
Not really.
Okay.
I mean, not really. I mean, there's definitely some getting to know each other. Like, you know, you're living together, and you know how sometimes people just aren't necessarily, it's not necessarily that you're not a fit, it's more you're just coming to terms with how a person is, you know, because that's how you really learn about a person and who they are, is when you move in together.
Yeah, because the facade goes away at that point.
Well, you could totally be dating somebody for years and live in different places, and it's like the greatest thing, and then suddenly you move in together, and then you see them for what they really are, you know, because it's easy to, you know, like you said, put on a facade. Your lady's coming over, suddenly your apartment's spotless. Right. Then you know you're not going to see her for a week. It is a disaster pit. You know what I mean? Like, so it's easy to hide little shit like that. Okay. But then when you start living together, you end up, you know, those little things come out. So it's more about
relationships are full of surprise. Like, and I don't think none of us, well, probably to some degree, some people do, where they intentionally hide failures or whatever, but I think we all just do it subconscious. Like, we want to put together this best image because we want to impress that person that we're into or whatever, but you just can't maintain that.
No, absolutely.
When you're sharing a fucking
you
house
nailed
together.
It.
So.
That's a lot of what you don't want to admit your failures. You're trying, like you said, you're putting on a show. You're trying to be so impressive. You know, trying to impress things.
Why my current relationship has worked so well, because I told her from the get, I was like, I'm a fucking horrible person.
Yeah,
I'm a piece of shit. See, I really am. I'm trying really hard, but I'm not a good.
I'm right there with you. I fuck up a lot,
man. I fuck up a lot.
That's the one of the positives that came out of this story that we're telling, is that I'm very self-aware now.
Yeah,
and I'm very honest about it. Like, I'm straightforward. I'm not kidding anybody. You know, I had, prior to this relationship and between that and the other relationship that we're talking about, I dated a couple people, and it ended up not working out for whatever reasons, but I was always very honest about it too. Like, I was like, this is who I am. Take it or leave it.
Now, you guys were together at the house with the family, living together, trying to make things work. You're pursuing comedy.
Yep, doing a little bit of comedy, but at this time, so we moved out there, and I depleted my 401k. Like, I quit my job, cashed it out.
This is what funded the trip.
This is what funded the trip.
Okay.
I also had to use that money for other things, like, because I took almost a month, which then ended up becoming a couple months, because things with my bankruptcy kind of delayed things a little bit. Mm-hmm. But I quit my job in April. Then I had to wait the however many weeks for my money to cash out and get it. And that put me into May. And then by the time we left, it was like the end of June. So I basically had that month, but, you know, a couple months where I had some money saved up, and had that money where I had to also not only pay for the move, but I was paying for living expenses, you know, buying a few things here and there, doing whatever, you know. So when we did move, I ended up renting the U-Haul, paying for all the gas, and when we got out, we barely made it. That was crazy. Like, we got out, we barely made it. Actually, when we got there, we had to borrow $100 from her mom to put gas in the U-Haul to bring it back, and then I got my refund for the deposit, and then I paid her back. So we I barely made it out there to California. That's how close it was.
So that first month, how did you survive?
Now that I was thinking about it, because we were living with her parents. I mean, that was,
So your job was just to go get a job right away.
My job, yeah, that is exactly it. Okay. And of course, it took me. We got there at the end of June, and I think at the end of July I had a job. So it took me a good month. But in between, I was trying to pick up even temporary work. Like the first job that I did out there, I got a job handing out flyers about Rockstar video games during Comic-Con. It was one of them people on the street handing out postcards about
video games. Did you have to be in
games.
costume?
Nope, didn't have to be in costume. And it sucked because I got sunburned so bad.
Holy shit.
But yeah, I did that for a few days. Did
you do Comic-Con. Did you ever sell plasma? Did you ever do that?
No, didn't have to get that bad.
It's a go-to thing for money, man.
Yeah, well, I should have maybe. But I don't know if my plasma would have been any good. So I did that, and that got us a little bit of cash. And then, she had money from child support that came in here and there. So, we had a little bit of money, but not, a ton. When I think about it now and say it out loud, I'm like, God, you're so dumb. Everything you did with that move was stupid.
It's half my decisions in life.
That's It was that was all dumb.
What were you thinking?
Everything you did was so dumb.
Right.
Financially.
Well, let's talk about this. Do you think that this decision process or bad decision making, was it driven because of your aspirations about comedy, or was it the relationship part of it, or was it a combination of the two?
I think it was a combination of the two. I was excited about comedy, wanted to impress her, because a lot of the money that when I got my money, I still had to pay my mortgage and, my car payment, and I had bills and stuff that I was paying. But then I also, we took little vacations. We came up to the cities. In fact, that's when we met you. Mm-hmm. We came up here before we moved out to California and spent 3 or 4 days up here, got a hotel. We went shopping.
I thought we'd met before.
But in 2011, that's when we officially met.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So that's right when I started comedy.
And that was right after we started dating. Okay. Right before we moved to California.
So I met her then too.
You met her too, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Let's do a lot of drugs, man.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. It was a Monday night at Acme Comedy Club years ago. I only remember that is because you were one of the first people to talk to me, and you're like, "Hey, if this is your first time, you need to star your name." You were the one that told me to put a star by my name.
Oh, I wasn't a dick? Okay, sweet.
Yeah, you weren't a dick. Not to me anyway.
Good. Proud of myself.
You were actually nice to me.
Sometimes I'm an accidental dick. I don't ever try to.
That happens to all of us. It's easy for all of us to be that way.
So you're there. You guys living together. You're trying to make it work financially. When does things start breaking down? When does what happens?
And really, as soon as we moved out there, things start breaking down when you think about it. Because when I did find a job, that was the other thing. The one thing I didn't think about, I knew the cost of living out there was going to be more expensive, but I also thought that because of that, jobs were going to, the rate of pay versus cost of living was going to be comparable, and it absolutely was not.
Really? I kind of thought that too. I thought, because I always heard how expensive, because I've kicked around the idea of going there.
Very expensive.
Really?
My first job that I got out there, I want to say I was only making $9 an hour.
Jesus.
And it was at a scuba shop, just doing I was basically the house nerd. I'm doing a lot of mostly listing stuff on eBay and Amazon and doing computer type stuff, and then odds and ends or whatever.
Do you scuba dive too?
No. I was, and that's why I wasn't a really good fit. They wanted people who are interested in scuba diving, and eventually,
Well, I like oxygen. I'm really into breathing.
I'm just honestly, I just took this job because it was the first job that hired me.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I ended up getting fired from that job for being on the internet when I wasn't supposed to. So whatever. Which was funny because I was on the internet looking for another job during the lunch break. I was whatever, I didn't care. I was still getting my work done, but the owner of the business was kind of a dick. When he fired me, he was very much a dick, and I still remember this. He said, I hope that your relationship goes south. I hope you fail at comedy. And
this is the boss?
Yes. And he said, I hope you have to move back to South Dakota with your tail between your legs. Like, that's what he said.
Do you remember the name of this company? Can we put it out? Jesus Christ. Scuba Assholes Incorporated?
Yeah, right? Yeah, I don't remember. I think it was just like House of Scuba. That was
House
the name.
of Scuba?
House of Scuba.
That's a stupid fucking name.
Right. I get it. I broke a rule. That's
Right.
fine. I get it that you were pissed at me. I understand that. I'm
Sure,
an
to put a
adult,
curse
but-
on your
but
employee
you know
that you
what?
fire.
Just fucking fire me and send me on my way. You know, that's all you needed to do. Instead,
shit.
he made it way more personal than it needed to be.
So when did the first, I guess, major event, negative event within the relationship start happening?
Well, I honestly, I don't think that really happened until after we were engaged. I mean, we had our little fights because she had a lot of like issues that she was kind of dealing with. There was a lot of emotional baggage that she had from her prior relationship. You know, she had a really bad marriage and it was an abusive situation, and you know, and then one of the relationships she was in before that, it was a controlling relationship, which was still a form of abuse. And
So explain to me how that translates to yours. Like, what are you? I can envision like walking on eggshells or on certain environment.
Yeah. You got to be
deal.
very sensitive about certain things. Right. I try not to be confrontational. I'm more of a easygoing, just let it roll off the shoulder. Just life is what it is. Some things you can control, some things you can't. Just got to keep living or whatever. So I'm very more of a free spirit in that sense. So like, and so I'm not any of them things. I'm not controlling. I'm not abusive. I'm everything she's not used to, and which made it harder for her, I think, because she was trying to adjust to that. She didn't know what it was like for somebody to be nice to her, and respect her and treat her as a human. She was used to being treated like crap. And so when people get into them relationships and get into those mindsets, I mean, that's what Stockholm Syndrome is. I mean, you look at all these women that are in abusive relationships and they stay in them relationships because they don't know anything else. They don't know how to act with anything else. So I think,
and just to for the listener's sake and whatever, it's neither one of us are clinical psychiatrists.
no,
or
absolutely.
anything like
That.
These are just your impressions and
just
things
my
like that.
impressions and observations.
Right.
You're right.
It's- whenever we talk about things like that, I always want to preface this stuff.
No,
'cause
that's a good point. 'Cause
we're getting
not.
one side of a story, but I get what you're saying.
No,
and
absolutely.
and I can relate a lot to these situations. So I know where that vibe is coming from.
Yeah, I'm one of them people. I'm very observational,
Right.
and I'm very good at reading people and like reading situations. I don't know. I'm not a professional, but psychology's always been kind of
Right.
an interest of mine. So like,
Would you say that you being less assertive in relationship, that she just didn't respond well to that? Like she was accustomed to, maybe not wanted that, but because of the relationship she had before, she was more used to being
I could definitely see that
led in the
where-
relationship a little bit more,
Yeah.
and you were trying to be more of a mutual equal type person.
Equal, and she, I could definitely see that.
Okay.
And yeah, I could have probably been, if I would have been more assertive and more taken the typical male role, I guess you could say, and made more decisions, I guess, instead of making it, to me, we were a team, so I could see where that could have caused some of the issues.
Well, I get that too, and that's not just like boyfriend girlfriend type relationships. That's any kind of relationships where if you're used to a certain degree of stress, and then that stress is not there, then you just don't know what to do.
No, yeah, exactly. You don't know how to act.
You don't know how to act
Yeah.
and how to respond and things like that. Even though it might be a better environment, sometimes chaos becomes comfort.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Well, and it was kind of on the flip side of that. Now I'm in this relationship with somebody that I'm trying to be, sensitive to what she went through.
Huh.
Where like my previous relationship, and I didn't have a lot of relationship experience other than I was married for 12 years.
Yeah, because you got married when you were fucking 12.
Exactly. And so that was all I knew. And we had our issues, as every married couple does,
Right.
but overall, it wasn't a bad marriage.
Okay.
We just grew up and wanted different things.
Yeah.
And so we were aware of it and we went our own way. And it's so like the relationship that I was in for the most part was pretty healthy. Like I realized afterwards, now that I've been divorced for like 10 years or more, well, more than that, I realized that there was a lot of things that I did in that relationship that weren't good for the relationship. You know, a lot of being selfish, you know, with different things and choices and just things like that. Not being there necessarily is just not being a good husband or a partner,
Right.
you know, emotionally and mentally and things like that. You know, so, but because of that, you know, for, like I said, my relationship for the most part was pretty good. So now I'm on the opposite of that, where I'm trying to figure out this relationship where
Right.
there's more chaos. Now, I did have a little bit of practice because of my parents. My parents' relationship wasn't that great. It was very hostile. So I had that. So there was a lot of domestic things that I remember from my childhood. So I was able to like navigate my way through this. And because of that too, like I wasn't not a confrontational person. Like I try to avoid conflict. Like my dad when I was a kid, and he's not that way now. Just for people to know, my dad's great. He mellowed out where he's like one of my best friends now. But when I was a kid, you know, he was a kid. He was a kid when he had me. That was another thing. Like he wasn't matured yet. So he had a lot of like anger issues. Like he'd blow off, he like hot temper, like any little thing would set him off. So I was used to walking around eggshells with that. And it was kind of the same thing. Now I'm in this relationship, which kind of reminded me of my dad, where little things would set her off. So I just try to, you know, avoid them.
Well, let me ask like this. Were you happy at this point in the relationship? Did that
At
feel...
this point I was, because, you know, I realized we're still a newer relationship. We're still getting to know each other. And, you know, I thought I was in love. Like I felt like I was in love with her. Like she, you know, there was a lot of, even with the issues that we had, there was a lot of things that were great about the relationship. We had a lot of the same interests. We had a lot of mutual friends. We liked a lot of the same things. We liked a lot of the same movies, same books, and same things like that. But then at the same time, there's a lot of things that we didn't necessarily like together that we were able to introduce each other to. So, you know, so there's that where you get because there's always excitement when you introduce your partner to something that you like that they've never done, and then suddenly they get this appreciation for it, and vice versa. So there was a lot of that. So there was a lot of good things going on in the relationship, you know.
Can you give me, I know in the pre-interview we talked a little bit about some of the more extreme stories. Did those happen at this point? I'm talking about like the fighting when you guys were driving and she wanted to get out of the car story.
I think that, because I don't remember exactly when we went on that vacation, if that was the year after we were in California or a couple of years, but yeah.
Was this pre-proposal?
I believe it was.
Okay, so tell that story. Just get kind of example some of like the extreme levels of tension.
Yeah, so we came home for a vacation back, and home being, I say home because to me it was home, and that's where I grew up. Because we came back to South Dakota for a few days. We drove back, and we did that because her daughter was going to come and stay with some family for a couple months over the summer. So we thought, well, we'll drive her back, then we can see some friends, and then we'll leave her and drive back to California. And so we did that, and overall, I think the vacation for the most part was pretty good. We did our things or whatever. And then we were heading back, and like I said, she had a lot of these like mood swings, I guess, where, I don't know, where she would, a lot of self-esteem issues. That's where a lot of it stemmed from. Not feeling self-worth or whatever. And so she would get down on things or whatever. But for whatever reason, and I don't even remember why we got in a fight, but we got in an argument while we were driving. We're on a country road.
Those are the fucking worst. I've been in like relationship fights when you're on the fucking road and you're just trapped in a fucking car.
Oh, and it's
regardless of who starts it, and you're like,
it doesn't matter who's. Yeah,
you're right. Just trapped in this fucking rolling box, trying.
And that's what was
screaming at each other, going 80 miles an hour down the highway.
Yeah, and that's exactly what's going on. We literally were only probably 3 or 4 hours into our trip. I mean, we were kind of in southern South Dakota, almost to the Nebraska border or whatever, and we got in this fight, and I don't even remember what we were fighting about. But I pulled over. I was like, I'm not doing this. We're not going to fight and drive because this is ridiculous. And I pulled over, and she got out of the car and fighting, and then you know, kind of did the whole woe is me, I shouldn't live, and blah 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 or whatever. And then she laid down in the middle of the road and said, I'm just going to lay here till somebody runs me over. And my first reaction was like, fine. And then she got out of the car and did that, and then I just started driving away. And then I was like, I'm not. And then, you know, I got down the road and stopped, and then, you know, finally got her to calm down, and we
Is she laying in the road the whole time?
Yeah, she laid in the road. Yeah, like a little kid, like throwing a tantrum like a little kid would.
What, was her kid with you guys?
No, this was
thank
this was
God.
on our way back.
Oh, thank God.
This was.
I'd
was
hate
on
for the
our
kid
way
to
back.
see that, regardless of who is at fault.
Yeah, exactly. But her kid I'm sure seen plenty of her little tantrums, because that was a lot of it. A lot of it is she just threw these tantrums. That's what it was, basically. That's exactly what that was. It was a tantrum.
And in an attempt to be fair for the person who's not here, and again, I keep saying I'm relating it to things I've done. Did you feed into any of that at all? Did you?
You mean like try to antagonize her?
Yeah.
Or,
Did you?
I didn't try to antagonize her. I mean, I'm sure I fed into it. I mean, obviously she was upset with something I probably did or said, or whether it was intentional or unintentional.
Let me put it on me. Like, here's something. Here's like the thing I do. It's like sometimes, even if you're right, you know, it's better just to pull away.
Oh, absolutely.
But I've got the really bad habit of
not
like,
pulling
no,
away.
I'm right. Here's the facts, and here's what it is. And that's probably reflective of anybody who listens to this podcast. It's like, yeah, I get that. You're that type of person. Like, no, here's A, B, and C of why this is not fucking right. And it serves no purpose when it's the emotion of a relationship.
Oh,
but you just
absolutely.
gotta kind of let it sit back and then try to come back together. But you're not winning a fucking debate. You know, do you? Is it?
No, I
is that similar?
totally
Okay.
get where you're coming from. Yeah, and I could definitely
It's
see
my
that,
biggest
where it's
flaws. I swear.
Like, yeah, because that's something I've been trying to get better at too. But like, if I'm very good at because like I said, I'm pretty observational, and like I can observe things, and like I'm very good at calling people out, and should not necessarily need to. You know what I mean? Like, I don't need to rub it in their face that they were wrong for this, and this, or whatever.
Exactly.
And because I'm also a comic and I like to joke around, like sometimes you say things jokingly, and I know I've did this where I've said things jokingly and she did not like what I said. And that was part of the reason she was upset, and rightfully so.
Right.
You know,
God
I'm
damn
like,
it, man. We're so similar in these things.
In my
God
way,
damn it.
I'm like, I'm just joking, and she's like, yeah, but you were, you know. But that was the other thing. Like, she didn't communicate either.
Right.
Like, I'm a communicator. Like, that was something in my previous marriage, and even in my current relationship. And in my current relationship, she is getting better about communicating, but she has a hard time, like, we've got this system where it's like if we have a little issue, and we very rarely have any issues, but I can usually, because I'm very empathetic and I'm very good at sensing people's emotions, and I can tell when people are upset. And when something's not right, and the environment is off, I can tell. And so I'll say something, and then she'll be like, "Oh no, everything's fine." And I can just sense, but.
Right.
I've learned now that I just got to give her time to let her process her thoughts, and then she comes and talks to me, and then we communicate. But my ex did not want to communicate things. Like, if she had an issue, instead of just saying, "Hey, you said this. I know you were joking, but it was insensitive and it hurt my feelings." Instead, she would just laugh it off, bottle it up, let it brew. And let it brew, and then I would maybe another situation where I do something, and then let it brew, and then
it comes all
finally
out
it
at
just
once.
fucking explodes. Yeah, and it all comes out at once.
I do that. That's
so
my
there
way.
was a lot of that probably.
I do the same thing in my current relationship. If you notice, when you walk down here, all the fucking country music memorabilia hanging on the walls and shit.
Yeah.
My girlfriend, tiny fucking Asian chick, loves country music. Just loves it with a fucking passion. And I couldn't think of something I hate more than country music. And I still do it. I try not to do it, but I still like make fun of country music almost daily.
That's fine.
Almost daily. And it bothers her. And I forget that, you know, just like I'm passionate about comedy or whatever I'm into, she's that way about this music.
Yep.
So to her, it's such a personal assault. And I think I'm just having fun when I'm making fun of her. Who's her favorite? Keith Urban. You know, I
Yeah.
pick on that guy. I say, oh, he looks like a fucking chick. Whatever. You know, and it builds up inside of it. I'm really bad. I'm learning so much in this conversation. Even though I knew that
You're not
stuff,
alone, right?
But yeah.
That's funny though that you bring up the country music stuff because I was questioning you because
no.
all those signs were like leading to your studio,
Right.
And
No,
I was
everything
like,
stops
hey,
right
man,
here. This is my
I'm
safe
like-
space away
I'm
from
like,
everything
all
else.
right, well,
Well, you
to
passed
each
through the
their
Star
own.
Wars room, so that's
I did.
That's our,
I did.
That's our
I was
shared
like,
area
okay,
there.
so
We
he
both
really
have
likes
that.
country music, but he's also a nerd. So I was like, you started gaining points back.
Yeah, that's our shared room. The country, all the music shit, that's all hers. Everything. But she loves it, so I love
Yeah,
her.
to each their own, man. To
Right.
each their own. There's not enough of it. Like that's something too that I realized that as I've gotten older, it's easy to like criticize people for what they like instead of just let them like whatever they want.
Well,
You know?
here's the
'Cause
thing.
you like your things too.
Yeah,
You know what
but
I mean?
I'm trying
Like,
to,
it's like-
but like you, I'm trying to do it from, and
we're
that's
trying to be funny.
anybody who
but-
listens to it. You know, for the most part, comics are defective in some kind of way.
Oh, absolutely. And we're just total dickheads.
Yeah, and I like to shit on stuff, but I don't do it to be hurt. I just do it because that's my muscle reaction.
Yep.
It's like if there's something there, I'm gonna try to pick it apart, and I'm gonna try to find something I can make fun of.
Try to jest it and find that joke.
And I assume that most comics, if you're in a relationship with that, doesn't excuse it, but if you're dating a comedian, male or female comedian, whatever, and they make jokes about shit, that's just their
Oh, yeah,
their
absolutely.
persona. That's their being. That's their goal is to find funny and shit. And that's how we deal with everything. If fucking tragedies and things we don't like and whatever things we do like, is to always fucking find the joke.
No, absolutely. I mean,
But
that's
my failure is doing it at the wrong times.
yeah, it's the
beating
timing,
around the
not-
head with it.
Haven't learned that timing or the appropriate place for the joke.
Right. No
Because
self-control.
I'm like I said, I'm the same way. Like that's how I've dealt with a lot of my shit over even before I did comedy. Like I've always had a sense of humor and always joked around and always tried to find the humor and the funny in whatever the situation was. You know, if a bad situation came, try to find something funny about it.
Well, and
And
the
that's
other
how I dealt with a lot of my shit.
right. And the other angle is, and this has been said on many podcasts many times ago, is like the dynamic between comedians is shitting on each other.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And it's a game. It's a form of practice. It's a form of camaraderie. But and this is like I don't know if it's the same for you. Like if I go work like my square job, I have to be really careful about how I react to stuff in a professional environment.
Oh yeah.
Because again, like a tragedy or something bad, like it's like, oh, a baby died. I'm like, oh, just one, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly. Yeah. No, I'm
So
the same.
You got to be
way.
careful because
You do.
our perceptions of the world are very different in how we.
It's funny that you
approach it.
say that because of that, I don't interact with people. Like I try to interact with people as less as possible at work because of that. Like I just don't want an opportunity to like when I do joke, it's usually appropriate, but I try to like. People probably think I'm kind of a stuck up dick because I
Right.
don't talk to a lot of people, but really it's like I'm just trying not to get in trouble.
Right.
Like I know
Just
I'm
try
going
to
to
keep your
say
mouth
something inappropriate, so it's just best if I don't talk.
There's-
And then of course people are like, oh, they're surprised that when they find out I do comedy. They're like, you do comedy, but you don't seem like you would. And it's like, yeah, that's because I'm at work and trying not to get fired.
Exactly. So let's speed up the storyline here. And spoiler alert, at the end of this, towards the end here, there's another guy comes into the story. Their relationship that she eventually starts with this other guy. This happened, we think, or you think, prior to the engagement?
No, prior to the wedding. So
Prior to the, okay.
So this is what happened. So we move out there. We're out there for maybe a year or so, and then I really went back and forth on whether or not I wanted to get married because this was another red flag, I guess. Now that I really should have thought about it, she's pretty clear that she didn't want to get remarried. Like she was like, I don't want to get married. Blah blah. We'll just ruin a relationship. Blah 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 blah. So we'd had talks about marriage. I don't know, for whatever reason, I'm a married guy. Like and of course that's because that's all I knew. Like to me, if we're gonna be in a relationship that was gonna work, we needed to be husband and wife.
Okay.
That's just how I was raised, I guess.
I don't think that's wrong
Even
or
though-
right. I think that's just some people are that
just-
way. And some
yeah,
people
it's
are not.
it's just what it was, and I realize now that that's not the case. You don't need that, but then that was kind of my mindset. But I went back and forth on trying to make the decision on whether or not I was going to propose, because I was afraid that I would propose and then she'd say no, and then our relationship would be over. So like I went through a lot of emotional distress deciding. Finally, I'd made the decision that I was going to do it, planned it out, decided to do it on her birthday because her ex-husband asked for a divorce on her birthday. So I was trying to do something nice to basically cancel out that negative, a positive canceling out a negative. And so I planned this party. We do a surprise or a big 80s themed birthday party for her at this bar that we hung out at a lot. And then right at midnight, when it's officially her birthday, the karaoke DJ lets me come on stage, gives me the mic, and I do this big proposal, drunken proposal in front of all bunch of our friends that were there hanging out for her birthday and stuff, and big whole speech and on the knee and all that shit, the whole 9 yards. And she says some words, and then she's like, yeah, so we're engaged.
Wait a minute, hold on. I can't let you. She says some words, and she's like, yeah.
Well, yeah, because
what's her vibe? Was it like
her first reaction was like, holy shit? Like that was basically what she said. She was like,
was it
holy
like
shit.
she was on the spot, uncomfortable, or
no, just taken back a minute, like couldn't believe it was happening. I don't think she didn't. I think she didn't think I was ever going to do it.
Okay.
Even though she said she didn't want to get married, I think deep down inside she probably did. And a lot of the things she said, I feel like were fronts, because she didn't want to. She was afraid to be in touch with her feelings. Like, and that was another thing with her. Like, she didn't get touchy-feely as far as like emotionally, like conversation, unless she was kind of drinking. Then it was, oh, I love you, blah blah blah, you don't know what you mean to me, I never tell you enough, and shit like that.
Right.
Typical drunk people stuff.
Right.
So I think she was taken aback by that, and she was like, holy shit, or whatever, and then said yes right away. So it wasn't like a, oh god, I'm on the spot kind of thing. It was more of a, can't believe this is happening situation. So now we're engaged, and for the most part, I mean, we still have our little issues.
But it was, just for clarification, it was a definite yes.
Yes, it was definitely, yeah. So the words she said were more of like just being surprised, and then she said, yes, of course I'll marry you.
Gotcha.
So yeah. So there was no, well, I have to think about it, no awkward, it was a great proposal. It was great. Yeah. I put a lot of effort into it, and it was successful. And so now we're a happily engaged couple, and now we got to start planning a wedding. And that's really where things took a tumble. She wanted to have a nice wedding ceremony, kind of a big ceremony. Because the way I felt about it, I was already married once. I already had a big wedding. I already did the friends, family, the whole 9 yards. I didn't care about all that. Like, that isn't what marriage is about. All that is a horse and pony show for friends and family. If you really love somebody and you really want to be together and you really want to be married, you just go get married and do it, or just be together and don't get married.
I'm with you on that. I don't think it's,
you don't need. The way I look at it is, if it's your first time, if you've never been married before, I totally understand wanting to have a ceremony and wanting to do the whole 9 yards or whatever. I get that, because it is an experience that everybody should have at least once. But I'm at this point in life where I've already had that. So now it's not like a thing. I just want to marry who I think is my best friend. I'm like, I'm in love with you. Right. Let's just get married. She wants this ceremony. I also want to give her everything she wants, because that's, you're in this relationship. That's how I feel. I want to give you the world. Right. But I can't, because I don't have the money to give you the world, because I'm a starving artist that makes barely over minimum wage, you know? And at that time, when we did get engaged, I had another job, and I was only making like $11 an hour there, maybe $10 an hour. I don't really remember. I mean, I never made more than $11 an hour while I lived in California. Wow. Yeah. I ended up, when it was all said and done, like I had to
now they got the $15 minimum wage there.
Well,
You'd be doing good now.
No, fucking rent's ridiculous.
I can imagine.
I had to hustle my ass off for my apartment after we broke up.
About the wedding, I've never been married, right? the girl I'm with now is probably the only girl who I'd ever consider marrying, at least with an adult mind. I think when I was younger, I probably would pretend or play with the idea. I actually did get engaged, but it was just the worst possible circumstances, and it was just ridiculousness. But I'm like you as far as, but even not having a wedding, I don't really want one. I get why some people appreciate the ceremony of it and making it this big thing, but I was always thinking, like, if you're going to spend 10, 20, some people spend hundreds.
Oh yeah, way too much money.
Why don't you just invest that into your future?
Yeah, exactly.
Fucking buy a house or things like that. That seems like that's going to benefit the relationship.
Go on a honeymoon, like a great honeymoon.
Yeah, that too. If you're going to spend the money on...
How many couples get married and don't do a honeymoon because they can't afford it because they spent all their money on a wedding?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah, go.
Why kick off a relationship with debt? You know what I'm saying? Like, why don't you...
Well, I feel like that's why a lot of relationships and a lot of marriages end up not working, because financial issues are a big stress factor. And that was definitely one of our stress factors in our relationship, because
so she just had kind of like an unrealistic view of what you guys could manage together.
I think so. I mean, I think, she wanted a big, beautiful wedding, and we just didn't have the money, so there was that. But then there was ways around that. Like my first marriage, we had a really good wedding for really cheap. We did a lot of things ourselves. Like we made our own invitations. Because my ex-wife was very crafty.
Oh, nice.
And we did, we made all our invitations by hand. My family, my grandma did all the cooking. My grandma and grandpa did all the cooking for the reception, and she made her veil and like all this stuff that, we saved a ton of money. We were, do it ourselves kind of people. So there are ways around that.
If I had to have one or the other, I like what your description right there. That to me feels more like family centered and more
very more,
because everybody's contributing in your.
Yep.
Okay, I like that. That seems even more
and
romantic.
I remember I remember writing out invitations with her and my now ex-wife. We wrote all the invitations by hand, and then she embossed them, and we baked them, and like did all this shit together. Like, yeah, like I said, it was very family oriented, very, it was somewhat of a big wedding, but also small and family, friends, and great situation. But so my mentality at the time was, I just want to get married. I don't care where, I don't care how, like who's there doesn't really matter to me. What matters is that you and I are getting married. So I didn't put a lot of effort into the wedding planning, and that's really when our relationship really started. I'm trying to pursue comedy, I'm working, and I became very neglectful to her needs and planning. She just wanted all she wanted was for me to be a part of the like planning the wedding and be part of and be present in the relationship.
Right.
And I wasn't. I was too busy chasing comedy, because ultimately comedy was my first love, and she was my second love, and she realized that.
This is another thing I do myself and still do in a current relationship, and I think it's maybe a shared issue with comics. There's a little bit of we have an ego, and we have a desire to be accepted, and we have all this stuff, and I know I do it to my girlfriend. I put my stuff too often in front of hers,
Oh yeah.
Like to me, it's like I got to do this for the podcast, or just getting done, doing my album and stuff. Everything was most important, and everything else, her wanting to go spend time, do other things, go hang out with her family. I'm really bad at like, it's not important. That's not important. What's important is all this stuff right here.
All this work I got to do.
So it's a constant battle for me just to mitigate my own, or to monitor and maintain my own ego. Number one, and also respect her needs and things like that too. It's so I get what you're saying.
Oh yeah. Well, and then the other thing that, in a way that I looked at it too, it was my first love, but also I felt like it was a means to an end. Like everything I was doing to try to get better at comedy and try to like create these opportunities was to ultimately benefit us.
Oh my God.
As a couple. Not me as an individual, but us as a couple.
Yep.
Becoming famous enough where you're making a living wasn't just for my satisfaction and for me. In my mind, it was for all of us. That's how I felt about it.
Same rationale.
I definitely see, but I see where she was coming from, and I see her her side of it, how it looked to her that it wasn't.
Oh, absolutely. It's like I'm when I have that same idea, whether it be trying to make this podcast become something successful or whatever I'm working for to try to get there. It is my intent to try to do that to benefit both of us, and that's the mistake I've made. Is like, you got to understand she's got needs too, or whoever your significant other is.
Absolutely.
She, whatever.
Yep.
You can't just do that. They need this stuff too. It can't be one or the other.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, and now like my partner's great. She has her own stuff going on. She's my ex was very dependent and codependent on us. Right. Where now I'm in a relationship that's really good and healthy, and she has her own things that she's pursuing. So she's not codependent. She doesn't need me. She doesn't need me. Literally, she's so independent. Like,
nice.
She could just one day be like, "You need to get the fuck out of here," and I'm like, "All right, I'm out." And she's not gonna have any issues. You know what I mean? Like,
right. That's how my girlfriend is. She can totally do this on her own.
Support herself.
Right.
And has for a lot of years. Like. So that actually helps our relationship better because we're together because we want to be, not because we're stuck. Where a lot of people end up getting in relationships and they want to get out, but you end up getting stuck because of financial reasons or whatever. That's not. That's
a really good observation. Like, how many relationships are maintained just because of lack of mobility?
That's a lot of them. I feel like are because you get stuck. You can't get out because you're in this relationship. You have joint credit or finances, or you don't make enough on your own. And, especially with our economy, our economy is disgusting. Like people in order to just make a livable wage nowadays have to work 2 or 3 jobs just to fucking live, which is ridiculous. But because of that, I'm sure there's a lot of relationships where people just, they don't have the means.
It's not love holding it together. It's dual income. So
exactly. That's exactly it. It's dual income.
Holy
shit. But even now, like, I'm in this relationship that's great. She's very independent, but I find myself, I'm still trying to. One of my biggest faults is like, because I know comedies, I love comedy. I don't put it in the front of the relationship as much as I did with that relationship. And I feel like part of that is because that relationship, in the back of my mind, I always knew it wasn't good and it wasn't going to work. And then this relationship, I'm where I'm supposed to be. And I want to make sure it works. So I'm trying to have balance. But one of the biggest things I find myself not telling her about things all the time, comedy related, and she kind of gets upset that I'm not talking to her about it. But I'm like, I just don't want to bore you with comedy all the time. Like, if I was you, I'd be sick of hearing all this shit. Because when I have an idea for a joke, I talk to her about it, even though, she's not a comic, but, I talk to her about ideas and bounce stuff off of her, and, we have these conversations. So I feel like, I don't want to bore you all the time and let comedy consume our entire relationship. But then on her side, I totally see where she's coming from, where she's like, I just want you to talk to me. Right. Tell me things, I want to know what's going on in your life. And I'm not...
Here's me saying another chauvinistic guy thing. It's like, girls, for the most... I mean, they need that. They like to be involved and like to know what's going on. Where, I don't really want to sit there and rattle off, what I did. Yeah, I wrote 3 more jokes about me jerking off. That's what I did today. That kind of thing. But that's part of that, maintaining the relationship, giving what they need.
They need. Yeah, exactly. And
they need that interaction.
Exactly my point.
They appreciate that conversation where I'm like, let's just talk bare minimum. Oh God, this is another bad thing. If you do this, maybe different, but she likes to talk. Like, she likes to, which is strange for me not liking to talk because I do a podcast here. I'll talk for all day. But like, if it's she wants to come tell me something, I'm like, no, just tell me the facts that we need to get the idea so I can move on to something else. I'm horrible at that.
I'm pretty open. I'm more of the conversational person. Because like I said,
I'm bad at
when
that.
we have an issue, I can sense when things aren't right.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, we need to talk about this. We need to work this out. What's going on? She kind of closes off, and then eventually she comes around and talks to me or whatever. But
I think that's more of me being self-centered, because she's like, she wants to tell me something at work. She wants to give me the very intricate details. I'm like, I don't need to know about this. Just tell me how you got from point A to point B. And that's so disrespectful. And it's so,
I think
I do really bad.
In my situation, I think I'm lucky because my current partner isn't a big talker.
Okay.
So I mean, we talk about things and, whatever, but it's not to where, we don't necessarily have like huge conversations and where I'd have to be like, hey, I got shit to do. Make it quick. You know what I mean? Like,
well, I've done exactly that. See, I'm so fucked up.
Yeah, we all have our issues, man.
If anybody learns anything from this podcast above the content, it's how fucking flawed I am.
Yeah, we're all flawed, man. Everybody's flawed. The important thing is that we're aware of it and we try to be better.
Right.
So be better.
Let's jump back to your story.
Yeah, so we're engaged. At first couple months or whatever, it's great. Then we start planning the wedding, which really was me putting it all on her. I'm going out, doing comedy, doing all that, not really paying any attention to it. Then I start, because like I said, I'm all about hustle. I've always been a hustling type of person. I'm like, what can I do to keep getting, I started producing comedy shows, like right after I started doing comedy. Then when I moved out to California, I was producing shows, running open mics, trying to, do shows. And then I had a friend that I had met actually online before I moved out there. And we became really good friends, and he was big into wrestling. And, we started, we would have wrestling parties where we would do pay-per-views, and a bunch of people would come over, a bunch of comic friends that were into wrestling. We'd come over, watch wrestling, because my ex was a big wrestling fan as well. And he actually dabbled in wrestling, and then he decided that he worked for another wrestling promotion as an announcer and stuff, because he was a voice actor. And he also did some wrestling training or whatever. Well, he decided the company that he was kind of working with kind of fell apart. And so he decided to keep it going, but under a new name. So he started his own wrestling company. Right. And he knew I was a big fan of wrestling. I'm not a wrestler. And at that point, I was too old to even attempt to be a wrestler.
You'd make a good manager.
And that's
manager character.
That's exactly what I was.
Oh, nice.
I was. So he let me be a heel manager for one of the wrestlers that was cool with it. So I was part of this wrestling production.
Tell me what your character was.
Dirty Dan.
Dirty
Dan was the name. And I've actually did comedy now as the character a little bit, kind of incorporated it a little bit. But because it was funny, because we were just like, I remember the character kind of came up. We were having Thanksgiving at a friend's house, and we're just hanging out, and I don't know, we just started riffing, and this character Dirty Dan came up that drove a booty van, and just stupid ridiculous shit that we thought of, but then it ended up being a great persona for a wrestling manager. So like the character was like this greasy, New Jersey kind of manager, heel manager or whatever, and it worked out good for
that works.
It worked out really good for that. And so I got involved in that, and then my ex was she was getting really big into photography. So she was doing, kind of as a hobby, but trying to gear towards a business. She was also going to school for like graphic design and stuff. So she started doing photography for the wrestling production. And so we started getting involved in wrestling, things are going pretty good. And then one of the wrestlers pretty much made it evident that he was attracted to her. One of the people from that, and there was an event that they did that I wasn't.
Did you know him prior?
I knew him only through wrestling. I had met him a couple times through this production. You
guys were like best friends, or
no? We didn't like hang out. I mean, we went to a couple group activities where he was present. So like. And in fact, my roommate after we broke up was one of the people that was in this wrestling production, or one of the wrestlers. But we weren't like close friends. Right. My close friend within that wrestling production, I had a couple friends that were also comics that were involved, and they were my buddies. The one that started it was a really good friend of mine. In fact, he's still a really good friend of mine to this day. But we were both involved doing this. She was doing photography, I was doing the wrestling managing, blah, blah, blah. Things are going great. Then it's getting closer to our wedding. We start stressing about that. We start fighting more. A lot of it, I chalked it up as wedding stress, the planning, whatever. So we start fighting a lot. Then we start questioning whether or not we should be, get married. And then she starts having a lot of issues with anxiety. has a panic attack, has to go to the doctor, find out she has, panic attacks, whatever. They start putting on her meds. Couple different issues where, she did have a panic attack, and I got really good at like calming her down, like getting her to concentrate and breathe and not have the panic attack. Right. But she had a lot of anxiety, and so then that added more stress. And then I started thinking that maybe we shouldn't get married, not because I didn't want to marry her, but I just was like, oh, this is way too stressful. I don't like what it's doing to you, to your health, and maybe we should wait and whatever. And of course, she took it as, you don't love me, you don't want to be with me, I'm terrible, blah blah blah, which wasn't the case.
No, and if I missed this, I apologize. Were her going out and after meeting this guy and hanging out with him, is this happening yet?
Not quite. I'm getting to that.
Okay,
actually.
I'm sorry.
Nope, you're fine. Sure. I'm getting to that. So you have all that stuff happening now, right? Well, then, like I said, now we're also doing this wrestling thing. And there was an event that I was not at because, I don't know, I think I had a show or something. I had a comedy show, so I just wasn't at this wrestling show. But I came down later. Like, after I was done, I showed up towards the end because I had to, I dropped her off, and then I went back to pick her up and help tear down or whatever. And she was all excited and perky, and turned out that one of the wrestlers told somebody, basically said she had nice tits and he wanted to fuck her, and he didn't realize.
Oh, so he's a romantic.
Yeah, exactly. And but then found out she was in a relationship with me. He didn't realize. I guess he didn't realize that to prior events and whatever. And right. I get that, because at prior events it's not like we're all over each other. I'm doing the wrestling stuff. She's taking pictures.
Dirty Dan's got to be Dirty Dan.
Dirty Dan's being Dirty Dan.
He can't be Lover Dan.
Yeah, exactly. And, so he made it pretty evident that he liked her, and one of the other wrestlers or somebody that heard about it told her, so she was all giddy about it. And
how did you know? Did she told you this after the fact later on? Or
told me, well, I could tell she was all giddy and everything, okay. And then, of course, she was bragging about it. She was like,
she didn't hide it from you?
No, not at all. Didn't hide it at all. But that was the kind of relationship that we had. Like, okay. I tried to be like, our relationship was super open with communication and telling each other things, and like open and honest. That's how it should be. Right. And she was being open and honest about it. Like, it wasn't, she was just like, oh, that was so sweet, blah blah blah, giddy about it. I didn't think nothing of it, because it's just, that's what it is, right? Well, then they start hanging out more and more, and her attitude starts changing, and we're getting...
All right, let me address this here as a guy to a guy type thing. When you say hanging out, what do you mean? Like, just there, like him and her?
Well, not at first. Not at first.
Okay.
At first, it was with other people from the wrestling group.
Okay. So it wasn't individual, those two together?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
It was like a couple of the wrestlers were getting together. In fact, my friend that was the promoter was also at some of these events. Like, he didn't know what was going on. Okay. He was, when he found out.
See, I asked that, and a lot of people, like, I get that, a chick and a dude can be, platonically friendly and all that stuff too. But if my girlfriend says, hey, I'm going to go hang out with fucking Bob next door,
Well, yeah.
Individually, I'm like, oh, really? What's up with Bob?
No, for sure. So at first it was like group activities, like because she was a big karaoke person, and so they would get together at a bar and do karaoke, a bunch of the wrestlers and stuff or whatever. And I had been to a couple of those events or whatever, right. And then it started to be more just them, which, and I didn't want to be, I was trying so hard not to be like a controlling, jealous person.
So there was a point.
Well, yeah, there was a point
where you knew that it was just those two hanging out together.
And she told me, she was open and honest about it. She's like, "Hey, I'm going to help him work on his costume or whatever. He needs, some help or whatever, things like that." And I just was like, "All right."
Do you looking back, do you sense any?
Oh, I was
like,
a total
denial?
fucking idiot.
Okay.
I think looking back on it, I was a fucking dumbass. I know that. Like, but then at the same time, maybe. And I also think about it that maybe in the back of my head, I was hoping something would happen just to sabotage the relationship.
Really?
I think because maybe subconsciously I didn't want it to work, because But like I said, I was also wrapped up in comedy. Like that was my first love, and that's what I was concentrating on. And so I thought it was great that she had something that she could, or somebody she could hang out with while I'm doing comedy. Like she was distracted. In hindsight, super dumb. It should have been, if it was like a female friend, one thing. But the fact that she was hanging out with another guy, yeah, I was total stupid to for that to happen or whatever. I don't know.
It's interesting.
It's very frustrating because it's like the more now that I think about it, it's like I was a total idiot. Right. You know what I mean? But at the same time, I didn't want to be controlling. Like that was my, I wanted her to have friends, and she finally had a friend.
I don't think maybe you're and who knows? And this is like I have no background to make any kind of conclusions here, but I wonder if sometimes our brain, like you said, that subconsciously decisions that our brain is making, something like if you knew somewhere deep down inside you didn't want this to work, you wanted to focus on this, does your brain just kind of turn off and turn on certain reactions to things?
Good question, because I wonder that. Because
I look back and like I can, I've been in a similar situation, like I knew something was going on, didn't really give a fuck, because I'm on
doing my thing. I'm like, but I didn't realize, like I trusted her as they were just friends, because a lot of the stuff they were doing, and I didn't, I didn't look too hard into it. I didn't like follow her or wasn't suspicious or whatever. I didn't start getting suspicious until, when there was a time when they were supposed to be out as a group. She sent me a text and said, "Hey, I'm going to go out and do karaoke with the group or whatever." And I was doing a show, and I was like, all right. And then I got done with my show early, and I said, "Hey, I'm done with my show. I'm going to come join you." And she's like, "No, I don't want you to join me. We need to have separate lives."
Wow.
And you have your comedy. I have my karaoke. I don't want I don't want comedy to consume, because now she's very against comedy. Like this is she realizes that comedy's where my focus was. She's like, I don't want art. I don't want it to be becoming all about comedy and consumed with comedy. I just want to go have fun and blah 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 blah. So all right. But then her attitude changed. That was the other thing that I noticed. Like she started getting, her attitude was more toxic and more anger towards me.
Can you give me an example of like a
like that was a good example. Like prior to that, she would have been like, "Yeah, let's hang out. That's great. I'm excited." And,
what about when you guys are together? Has the vibe changed at all? Then is there less affection?
Less affection, kind of distant. On her phone probably a lot. Okay. Not really paying attention to me. But I think too, like with that, like I didn't really notice all that because I was so wrapped up in comedy. Like it was just
was there a decline in sexual connection? Was there like less intimacy?
She felt like there was, and that was because I started having trouble with erectile dysfunction, and she, of course, made that about herself, that it was all her, and she, I thought she was like, she would always say things like, "Oh, I'm just fat, I'm ugly, nobody should love me," and all this, like she had a lot of self-esteem issues. And I was like, no, that's not the case, and I talked to a friend who was a nurse, and I talked to him about it, and he, he said, "Well, you're probably, you got this wedding coming up, there's you're probably just stressed because that can cause it." And then, so I was just like, all right, well, that's probably it. It's probably just stress, because this is a lot of stress. We've got this wedding that's right around the corner. We're at each other's throats more. We're trying to, all this shit, all coming to an end. So I just chopped it up as stress, and then didn't think much of it. Turned out I was diabetic, and that's what was causing it. But I didn't learn that till a few months after the breakup.
All right. So Dick is good now.
It's fine now. Yeah, it's fine now. So it turned out, though, it had nothing to do with her. It was a health thing that I couldn't get addressed because I didn't have health insurance and I didn't have money to go to the doctor. Like I barely had any money. So it was, she made it about her and her self-esteem when really it was a very, very critical health issue that could have killed me.
Right.
You know,
It's nothing to do with you, dear. I just like sweets too much. That's all.
yeah,
it is.
which is funny. I really didn't, but I did drink a lot of soda at the time.
Yeah.
So
That'll kill your dick.
yeah, exactly. Oh yeah. That's exactly what happened. Like,
Any other like catching her in not truthful statements or
no,
anything like
not
that?
really. There was nothing that would have led me to think, other than there was a couple times where she started staying out way too late, and then, you know,
What's way too late?
well, she would come home at like 3, 4 in the morning. You know, she'd be like, "Oh, I'm gonna be coming home pretty soon. The bar's about to close," and then suddenly there was, you know, it's 3 in the morning and she's not home, and I'm like, "Hey, where are you? Just want to make sure you're safe." Blah blah blah. Then she'd finally get home super late or early, which depending on what day you're looking at it, and you know, she's like, "Oh, I got too drunk and I took a nap in my car," and things like that. And that's when I was
Sketchy.
like,
Yeah.
okay, that's kind of sketchy. Like, I don't see that. That's not.
How has your view of this upcoming wedding changed, or is it changing? Are you still?
Well, it has changed, because now I feel, you know, I can definitely sense there's something off and something wrong with our relationship. In fact, a few days before our wedding, I had a talk with her, and I was like, "Hey, you know, maybe we shouldn't get married. You know, you don't seem like you want to get married anymore. You don't seem like you want to be in this relationship. And, you know, if you don't, you know, I get it." And we had this big long talk, and she had told me about the issue she had with me, and I, you know, thought we addressed it, and we talked about it, and I thought, and we made the decision that we're going to get married and we're going to work through it. And so I thought, all right, well, we're going to do it. So we had the wedding, and like, it was a great wedding outside on a beach, on an island over the ocean, like as the backdrop, and friends from all over were there, and great reception.
And just so everybody knows, people are traveling from out of state.
Oh yeah,
They're coming
I had
to
a
you.
friend
This
that
is
came from I had friends that came from South Dakota, friends from Alaska. I had family that came from Northern California. Because that's the thing. Like, I was in a place where I had some friends that I met through comedy out there, but I didn't have friends and family prior to moving out there.
Right.
So like, all my friends and family came from other places to come to this wedding because they didn't live there.
Right.
You know, I had like 3 or 4 friends that, maybe even more, that flew in from mostly South Dakota. But like I said, one of my friends came from Alaska. And so, yeah, a lot of people came from all over to be at this wedding.
And I asked you in the pre-interview, but just so everybody else knows, he didn't show up. This other guy.
No, he was not at the
wrestling guy. Did not show up to the wedding.
The wrestler was not at the wedding. No. And I think that was part of it, because I told you that in the pre-interview too. Like, at the reception, I remember, or even after, it was a picture from the reception that somebody took, but after the wedding or whatever, I remember looking at it, and you could just see how miserable she seemed. Like,
Right.
like she didn't want to. And it was one of them things where you could tell, like, she felt guilty about something. It was one of them, I feel guilty and miserable, and I don't want to be here kind of looks. And almost like, oh, I'm being held hostage,
Right.
kind of situation.
Yeah, assuming that's
Yeah.
it is what it appears to be, where she was
And that's-
seeing this other dude.
oh, yeah, exactly.
And we're going to assume she was having sex prior with him.
Yep.
That-
I mean,
right, wrong, or
she
indifferent,
denies it, but even if she denies it, like, even if they didn't have sex, they were building a relationship. They
Right.
were still having a relationship. They were connecting, because he had a lot of the same issues that she did.
Right.
You know, a lot of dark elements where he didn't want to open up to people, and he, you know, like, his big thing as a wrestler was being a hardcore wrestler, because he liked pain, because he felt like he needed to be punished. and
These are the
shit
guys that
that
like get like the tacks.
Yes.
And all
Oh, yeah.
and
Yep.
Fucking.
Yep.
What's that called?
Doing-
The wire.
Barbed wire
and all that stuff.
Oh yeah, all that
Holy
stuff was what he was kind of doing, and that, so like, they connected on that and whatever. So they were definitely building a relationship.
That's going to be hard.
Definitely
even
emotionally.
if she's wrong
definitely
here.
emotionally and mentally, they're having an affair. They're
Right.
having a relationship,
And-
because
and-
it's beyond a friendship at
Right.
that point.
And just from the outside looking in, and we're going to assume that she's the one wrong here. It's still got to be hard for her to manage that.
Oh,
Because I know,
absolutely.
like you
That's
said,
a
like the
lot of
guilt and all
yeah.
that stuff. That's got to be.
Oh yeah, especially with somebody that has trouble controlling that kind of stuff. I mean,
Right.
she started like having issues with anxiety, and you know, now that I think about it, just at this moment, I'm like, it happened so long ago that I don't know for sure, but it's like, does that line up when she started hanging out with him more? Was the anxiety really coming from me, or was it coming from the fact that she was hiding
her
this?
own anxiety?
She was feeding her own anxiety because of this guilt, because of this relationship that was building, and all this shit she didn't want to talk about.
It makes sense because
I never thought about that till now. Honestly,
I've been unfaithful to a girlfriend in the past, and there is a stress about it. And there's a guiltiness about it.
Oh, I'm sure there is.
I can imagine it at my level, because I was young, but at the level of getting married, the additional stress of that on top of that, it's got to
absolutely.
trigger.
Oh, I'm sure it did. Oh,
Holy
absolutely.
shit.
I mean, it was definitely, it was a stressful situation for both of us. I totally get that.
Did she have any change of you told me she had some heavy drinking issues, I guess.
Yeah.
Was there any... Did that accelerate at all in this time?
Well,
was there anything
not
else?
really.
Okay.
I mean, she was going out more than she was before. That was the only thing,
Okay.
a couple nights a week or whatever. And then, like I said, she was more snappy towards me and more irritable towards me, And then, like, prior to that, there was other situations where we got in big fights, and she would do things like we got in a big fight one time. And she actually slapped me. And I was like, all right, I'm done. I'm not taking this shit. I'm out. This relationship's over. I'm packing my shit. And then she immediately felt bad and sat in front of the door and wouldn't let me leave. And she's like, if you leave me, then I don't have no reason to live. And, all that. And so, I'm just like, that's a lot of pressure. And,
Right.
And so there's, shit like that happened. But that was like before even this relationship,
right?
So there was definitely signs that that we weren't right for each other. Right. Sometimes two people aren't right, no matter how much you think you're right for somebody and you try to pretend and try to force it.
Right.
Sometimes people just don't mesh, and you have to fucking accept it and go your own ways. And we were...
That's that line between love and infatuation, I think.
Oh, exactly.
It's so confusing, and I've been on both sides of it, and
we were too stubborn to really see it and just fucking go our separate ways when we should have. Like, there was plenty of times when we should have did that and didn't. But then we had this wedding. It was great. Now the next day... And this is another thing that I was really bad at. I make a lot of...
Take me to the end of the wedding, because that's an important part of the story.
Okay, so we have the wedding reception. After the reception, we go to this bar that's in our neighborhood. That's kind of our bar that we go to. And we do karaoke there, and with more drinking. And she is fucking plowed, and I had a few to drink, but I was still... can't remember if somebody was driving us or not, but I was not where she was with being intoxicated. I was, because I was trying, we had shit to unload and all kinds of shit yet to do tonight before we went to bed. So I was still trying to be aware. I was letting her have her fun. I could tell that she needed this. And so I was like, let it happen. So we get home. I unload the car pretty much by myself. I mean, I think her sister helped. But she was pretty much no help because she was too intoxicated. And then it's like 3:30, 4 in the morning. We go to bed. We got people coming over in the morning for the gifts and all that jazz. And so we're in bed. And now she wants to have sex and consummate the marriage. And I really didn't want to have sex because she was way drunk. And it didn't feel right. Yeah. It didn't feel right. And then, of course, she did what she does really well, and that's put on a guilt trip and made me feel really bad and really shitty, and then pretty much pressured me into having sex. And so we had sex.
Right.
And yeah, so we had sex, and then
I'm not laughing at you. I'm just laughing at the idea of being pressured into...
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what it was. It was total pressure, Did the whole guilt trip, and... You guess you don't love me, and all the shit that you're just finally you're like, well, I can either sit here and keep this argument going, or we can just have sex and then go to bed.
Right.
And so like I said, and this is one of my faults, I'm not confrontational, so I'm like, fine, we'll just have sex.
Right.
Then we can go to bed. Then I'm at peace. You know what I mean? So,
That's one of those things that can happen to a guy and it kind of gets overlooked.
Yeah.
If you do the
right?
reverse to a chick, like, no, we got to have sex. We got to do it. And it's a total different image.
It's a whole different, it is a total different. And I don't think a lot of people probably don't. I mean, and I'm sure it's very rare for that to be this situation, but that's what it was, like just didn't feel right. And so then the next day we wake up, friends come over, she's super hungover. We open gifts, we do the thing. I take, we're having food or whatever, snacks and stuff, and we have this plan. We're going to go to the beach and we're going to do a bunch of stuff with our friends. And this is one thing where I'm kind of bad at. I make promises and then I don't always follow through. I change the plan. Like we say we're going to do one thing and then we go do another thing. And one of the things that we had talked about, we were going to do a little family honeymoon and take her and her daughter, and we were going to go up to Universal Studios for the weekend after our wedding. Then when I found out all our friends were coming from all over, I was like, hey, maybe instead of going, because we can go to Universal Studios anytime, let's stay home this weekend and hang out with our friends. We'll go show them the sights, spend time with them. And a lot of the friends were my friends. I say our friends, but they were mostly my friends because her friends lived there. Right. But some of her friends from town came with us. So, but mostly they were my friends that I hardly ever get to see. So I wanted to hang out with them because they came all the way to California for a wedding and they were going to be there for only a few days. Right. Most of them, our wedding was on a Thursday. Most of them flew in that morning. They were all leaving Saturday or Sunday. So I didn't follow through with our plan. I got our plan changed. And so she was upset about that. But of course she didn't talk about it. Didn't say anything about it. Just went as she did, bottled it up and went along with it. So we open up gifts. I go to the bank, deposit a bunch of money. I have to pay some bills right away because we waited to pay some bills to pay for things for the wedding, for the reception hall and different, the chair rentals and all this stuff. So then I go deposit a bunch of cash into the bank and then I pay a bunch of bills quick. And then we go have a great afternoon with our friends. We take them around the city. We do a lot of fun stuff. It's great. Then the next day, which now we're 2 days after the wedding, this is Saturday. We're supposed to go hang out with my friends again and do some more stuff, more sightseeing. And then she decides that she doesn't want to go with. She's going to go, there's a pool party or something that she wants to go to that the friend is involved with. And I'm like, all right. I mean,
2 days after?
This is 2 days after the wedding. This
shit.
is Saturday. We got married on a Thursday. This is Saturday. So she.
This is and this is not about her being a chick or it's the same either way. That.
Oh yeah.
God,
so
at least put on the act a little bit longer than 2 days after your fucking.
No, exactly. Yeah. No. Yeah. I know. And at this point now, I'm a little irritated. I am. I'm like, okay, well, this is fucked up.
Do you have more red lights going off in your head now?
Oh, absolutely. I'm like, this is 2 days after the wedding, and now you don't want to hang out with me? You don't want to, I'm like, well, this is fucking shitty. And then I go hang out with my friends. Of course, they're like, well, where's she? And she, didn't feel good or whatever, Basically making up excuses for her because I don't know. I'm in a weird place now. Yeah. And my friends could sense something wasn't right. Like my friends that I was hanging out with, we've been friends for over 30 years, he could tell, and so could my other friend. We've been friends from since high school, so they could kind of tell something was up. So then do our things that night. I kind of make a condescending remark about it, and of course she kind of gets mad or whatever, and then we go to bed, and the next day I say something again. I just had it. And we get in this great big argument. And this is now 3 days after our wedding. And at this point now, that day, she didn't want to go. And so my friends decided that they just wanted to do a guy's day. So we all went to the zoo. Just three of us. Hung out with my buds. Then, anyway, I get home. And then I'm pissed about the day before. And I'm like, you know what? This is bullshit. This is not right.
Right.
You know, you went. We've only been married for 2 days, and you don't want to hang out. You go hang out with this other guy, and I'm kind of suspicious now. And we get in this big fight, and finally she says, "I don't want to be married." And I'm like, "What? Why? Then why not? 2 days before the wedding, we could not have got him. We could have canceled this wedding,
Right?
You know, like that.
Just a reminder to listeners: you were questioning if they should proceed because of her health issues.
Literally 2 days before the wedding, and she's like, oh, whatever. And I'm just like, and now I'm pretty frustrated about it because it's like we could have prevented all of this, And so we get in this big fight and we're not talking, and then of course we have to share a vehicle, so we're we drive to work together. She drops me off, and then she goes to work, and we work for the same company but in different locations or whatever. So that was all weird. And then that on the way to work that following Monday, we had another conversation, and she, basically says, I'm trying to like, hey, let's work this out, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, no, done. Don't want nothing to do with you. Just drop it. This is it. We're done. Like, all right, drop it, go to work, get off work. Now she has this plan. She says, all right, I don't, let's not turn in the paperwork, and we got to figure out how to give all these gifts back and pay back the money that we used and blah, blah, blah. And so we should just pretend to be married. We can kind of work on things. But you only have like 10 days to turn in the paperwork. That's the other thing. And she's like, basically she's starting to stress herself out about that. Because then I was like, I was like, all right, I'll go along with it. And then I went out a couple nights for comedy, and I'm
just
out.
just so I can understand the situation. Do you have can you tell me what the figure was of money that you?
Well, I mean, you had all the gifts, the gifts were there. They were what they were.
Right.
Money wise, I honestly don't remember. Maybe like $1,500 or something. Maybe $2,000 at the most, but not even all that money. Like we still had some of it, but we had used
to pay the bills.
Probably used a good $500 or $600 of it. Plus, because we were hanging out with friends and stuff, so we probably spent half of it.
Right.
So it was. And considering that we didn't make a ton of money, it was significant enough,
Did you guys consider the idea of like just saying, "Hey, let's just be honest. This is not going to work out," and we'll just tell them, "Hey, look, we fucked up."
Yeah, I mean, I suggested that. I was like, "Hey, we just need to just be honest with people." And
I'm sure there's a degree of embarrassment too.
Well, it is, and that's the other thing. It is embarrassing, You're like, all these people came to this ceremony, and that's something that even friends kind of laugh about now. About that, were people that were there. That the pastor had this whole big conversation about love and commitment and loyalty and like all these fucking things, and he kept going. Like, it was a long ceremony about those three things, and then that happened.
And his speech was longer than your wedding.
Yeah, exactly. And I was embarrassed about that.
Or your marriage.
Embarrassed about the fact that we had this pastor there, and just we kind of went to his church, and just it was so embarrassing. All of it was. And so I was like, sure, all right, I don't care. I'll play along because I definitely wanted to make sure my friends and stuff got their shit back. I was not, because it also is like, well, was this just a scam? Like, that's how people are going to look at it.
It's the most complicated scam.
Right? What a fucking con. That's a long con.
We got to get
if I
married.
ever heard one.
And every time you got to make new friends for the next wedding to do it again.
You're just going to have these faux weddings but not really get married yet. You're just going to split the money. Yeah.
Like, what's going to happen the next time you get married and your friends? Like, how fucking hard are they going to be? Are you fucking sure this time? Is this one for real?
Oh, God. I'm engaged now, and I get that shit. My dad fucking roasts me all the time about it.
How long is this one going to last?
Oh, my God. In fact, it's funny because my dad didn't come to the wedding because he's not big on traveling, especially long distances. And so he was like, I'm going to be honest. I don't like to fly. I don't want to drive. If I have to drive out there, I'm going to have to take a ton of time off work, and I just don't want to do it. So what I'll do is I'll just send you a check for $500 to put towards wedding stuff as a gift. I was like, oh, cool, Dad. So he gives us this $500. So after we break up, it's like almost a year later, I'm on tour with some comedy buddies, and we did a show in my hometown, and my dad's at the show, and all excited and all proud of me because I, headlined it or whatever. And then he gives me $50, and he's like, hey, here's $50 to add to your guys' gas money and stuff. I know it's hard to do what you're doing, and you guys are doing a good job, and so here's a little money to help you with traveling. And my friends are there, and they're like, man, that was fucking awesome. Your dad just gave us money for gas? Fucking dad's cool. My dad looks up, and he's like, oh, shit, that's only $50. I gave him $500 for a fake wedding. I was like, damn, that was a burn.
You're never going to live that one.
No, I'm not, because now, fast forward, a couple months ago, my grandma's 84th birthday, they decided to do a big birthday and kind of like a small, intimate family reunion. Mm-hmm. And I'm hanging out with my dad, and he's like, yeah, that whole situation or whatever. And I don't remember how we got on the topic of it, but because he always tries to give me ideas for jokes and stuff. He's like, yeah, I can say $250 was for the wedding and $250 was for the divorce. I'm like, God damn it, Dad.
I like it, Dad. All right.
Brutal.
In essence of time, let's get to the point now where things kind of really get dark. Because it's failed. Yeah. You're trying to make this thing work. Before the discovery of the dude, did you guys ever announce that, hey, this wedding is not real? Or not that it's not real, but it's not going to work? And
yeah, we did. So what happened was like I said, I decided I was going to go along with her plan. Mm-hmm. And then I was going out, and of course, and a couple people noticed, because I told her, I was like, well, if we're not getting married for real, I'm not wearing this wedding ring. And I refused to wear the wedding ring. It's like, I'm not doing it. And couple people noticed when I was out. They're like, hey, how come you're not wearing a wedding ring?
Yeah, that's pretty fucking cucky if you're going to wear your
your
ring while she's banging some dudes.
Yeah, so I just like, get in, whatever. I made some stupid excuse or whatever. Some bullshit excuse. But everywhere I went, people were like, congratulations, I'm so happy for you. You guys are so great. And so it was constantly having that rubbed in my face. Mm-hmm. And after 4 or 5 days of that, I just said, hey, I know that this is driving your anxiety and you're worried about how we're going to pay people back or whatever, but that's on you. Right. You decided that you don't want to be in this marriage. I'm willing to work on our issues and try to be there, but you don't want that. I can't change that. So that's on you. I can't live here with you. We fight every day. Everywhere I go, this is getting rubbed into my face, so we're done. I'm moving out. And
that's torturous, man.
And it is very torturous. And like I said, after a few days of it, I was like, fuck this. I can't do this. Right. I'm moving out. And so then, of course, when I moved out, then she made a big Facebook post about it, blah, 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 blah. And then, I just shared it or whatever. And
her Facebook post, did she admit to the deception of what?
No. She just basically made it out that it was a mutual thing. We decided that it just isn't going to work, and it's for the better that we're not together, and that as soon as we can, we're going to make sure everybody gets the gifts and the money back. And even though it wasn't really mutual, I was just like, whatever. Right. Just whatever makes you.
She was trying to save a little bit of face.
Save a little faith, yeah. I'm like, whatever. And I'm still texting her and trying to work things out. And I'm sad now. I'm living with my friend. I'm like, writing poetry.
At this point,
I'm posting it. Friends are giving me shit about it and all kinds of shit there.
At that point, would you have, if she said, you know what, let's try to make this work, would you
at that point I would have.
Really? Okay.
Because I was heartbroken at that moment, even though I suspected something was going on with this other person, and maybe I wasn't in denial, I didn't believe that it could be, that I didn't believe this person that I thought I loved would do that to me, and then in hindsight, I'm like, well, geez, she did project that a lot. She tried to accuse me of cheating a lot, and I feel like she was projecting something that she was doing. Right. But I don't know. Like I said, maybe I was in denial. So at that point, within the first week or so, 2 weeks after I moved out, probably you know. But then, probably within the first week that I moved out, I would have. But then, like a week after I moved out, I decided to go get some stuff from the house that I needed, and I went unannounced. And I think part of it, I went unannounced because I kind of suspected something was up, because we had been texting, and she was basically out with him that night. And she had told me, hey, you need to stop texting me. I'm out with my friend, blah, blah, blah. Just, you know, don't bother
But didn't
me.
say
Don't
there was
bother me.
like a boyfriend.
No,
right?
no.
Okay.
Just, you know, hanging out.
Okay.
So I show up the next day unannounced to pick up some stuff. Part of it is because I kind of expected what was going to happen, and it was what I kind of thought. I get there, and he's there. And this is like between 8 and 9 in the morning. So it's not a situation where he just got there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, those are wake up hours.
Exactly. Exactly. And then, you know, that's exactly what was going on. They were all just kind of waking up, and he was there. And so then I was like super pissed about it, you know, and then I was really irate. And
was there a big confrontation between you and her, or you, her, and him?
She came out
or?
and she's like, what are you know, she was very, I didn't say anything to him. It wasn't his fault.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I mean, sure, he was very vocal that he was attracted to her, but at the end of the day,
did he say anything? Did he?
He really didn't.
Either to be apologetic or
he
be a dick?
No,
or
he didn't even. None. He
Okay.
stayed out of the way. I think he kind of knew that it was probably for the better.
Right.
Like he needed to. He did not get involved once with anything. Even afterwards, when we got really like never said anything to me.
So
Just
outside
kind
of banging your wife, he was cool about it as much as possible.
More of a. Yeah, definitely. He knew his role. He knew his place. That he better not try to get involved, because he probably afraid I would have got physical or something. I don't.
Emotional people
not that
make bad decisions sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. That's probably. And if you know me and see me, I don't look like I could hurt anybody. But so then after that, I was like, yeah, I'm so angry and pissed. And then I went and I'm done with this, you know. Well, then I made a decision that, you know what, if we can't be together, we can at least be friends and be civil. You know, she had a daughter that I built a relationship with, and I was pretty close, and I still wanted to be involved with her. And so I was like, all right, I'm just going to be civil. We can be friends. You know, we don't have to like hang out, whatever. We'll just be nice. And so we were being civil. And then this was almost a month after we had broken up. Now, a month after the wedding, she basically we were at a comedy event together. She was taking pictures, and I was there because I was running the show. And she told me she needed me to come over. She had some stuff that I needed to pick up, and I was like, I don't care about because at this point I didn't give a shit about anything. Like materials didn't matter. I was just like in a bad place. All I cared about was getting through the day so I could go fucking drink, which is a reoccurring theme when I go through bouts of depression. I get real bad with alcohol. Right. But I could tell that it wasn't about coming and getting the stuff, that she just wanted to talk. And so I was like, well, despite my better judgment, I went over there to have this conversation, and she looked me in the eyes and she said, hey, I need to tell you this, and I want you to hear it from me and not from somebody else or on social media. I'm pregnant. And I remember when she said that, time stopped for everything was like, I was just like, holy fuck, like what's going on? What is this, like a sick joke?
Right.
Is the universe playing a joke on me? Like, is this our saving grace? Are we going to be able to get back to like all this shit ran through my head in that one moment.
Oh, your initial impulse was that it was yours.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Okay.
My initial thought as soon as she said that was, holy fuck, this is terrible timing.
Right.
Like I immediately thought, and all that shit like raced through my head, and it wasn't a long pause. It was literally a fucking breath, but in my head,
it feels like forever.
Felt like forever, and all that shit just boom through my head. And then she goes, and I'm 100% sure it's not yours. Ugh. And that's when the switch flipped, and I was like, yeah, everything became clear, and I knew that I could not be that this person was not right for
Was
me.
she telling you this to tell you, or do you feel like there was some? Was she trying to be mean and hurtful?
No, because she was
What
very
the-
compassionate about it when she
Okay.
told me. Like
That's
she
good.
wasn't being vindictive. Because like I said, by this time we were being civil to each other. So she was basically, she knew it was going to come out, and she was trying to head off the problem.
Okay.
She's being an adult. For a
Kudos
change.
to her then.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
She was being an adult and wanting me to find out from her and not somebody else.
Okay. Totally respect that.
And so then everything that I'd kind of suspected and felt, like all this shit just came, like it all came into focus, and everything was clear, and I knew that we could not be together because she was too toxic for me. And then it got even worse, because then I was like, well, we're going to need to have a paternity test done because I want to make sure it's not mine.
All right.
She goes, it's not yours. I'm like, well, how do you know? It's only been a month since we got married and we had sex on our wedding night. And she's like, I don't remember having sex on our wedding night. And because that's how drunk she was. And I was
Right.
like, yeah, we did. And you were the one that wanted the sex. Like, you pretty much forced yourself on me.
Right.
And pressured me into it. I'm like, I didn't want it. And, she's like, and then she said that, I was like, yeah, so we got to have I was like, I don't think you understand how pregnancy works. Like you
Clearly.
basically you had sex with multiple people.
Right.
There's a chance that it could be either one of us.
You don't just get to decide.
Yeah, you don't get to just
Biology
decide
decides that
that this. And I think in her head, she honestly thought the math,
Okay.
and that's how I kind of felt like. That's why, even though she says she wasn't having an affair, I feel like they were having an affair, because in her head, the math added up that he was only the possibility, because she was so drunk she forgot we had sex.
Wow.
And so that was kind of why I felt like.
Also, this indicates that you just had sex with her once as she was your wife. Right?
Yeah.
Just one
Well,
time.
it'd probably been a while before that. No,
Right.
a lot of that was because I was having issues.
Right.
So that's something for when guys have issues with that. That's easy to have, like, self-conscious
Yeah.
issues that stem from that shit. But
she didn't understand the importance of the paternity part of it. Is that?
no, I think she didn't want to believe that it was possible, like, because she wanted nothing to do with me.
Right.
She felt like if it was mine, she was going to be trapped in having to deal with me for
Dude, that would make the story so much darker and so much harder for all parties involved.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. If it was
Holy
mine, that would have
fuck.
been ridiculous.
If there was ever a bullet dodge in this story, it's probably that one right
it
there.
definitely,
Holy fuck.
definitely. Yeah, I say that too. One of the jokes that I wrote about it is how I was like, I was Neo from the Matrix, just dodging bullets.
Right? Holy fuck.
But I was, she got angry because I was trying, wasn't really pressuring her, but she said some really bad things about it. She's like, well, if it's yours, I'm going to, just dark stuff that wasn't bad. But then she also, when we were talking about it, I was like, well, I don't think you understand, if I have to, I'm going to get a lawyer and I'm going to pursue this. I want to make sure it's not mine.
Right.
And she
And
just
not to be a dick, take the emotion off the table.
No, not to
Just
be
so
a
you don't have to
dick.
worry about 18 years of fucking child support, or
Yeah, I wanted
and
to
you
go-
want to be a good responsible parent if it is yours.
Exactly. I wanted
There's so
to
many
leave.
reasons outside of the
I
relationship.
wanted to make
part.
sure I could leave this relationship on a clear conscience. There was no way I could leave thinking that this could have potentially been my child and just walk away from it. You know what I mean? Like, I just
Yeah.
couldn't do it. My parents raised me better than that. And it was a situation where, like, I don't have kids and I don't want kids, and I've made that choice not to have kids. But if a situation arose and I had a kid, I'm not going to step away and I'm not going to not be involved.
Right.
And that's because, like I said, my parents raised me better than that. So if it was my kid, I was going to be involved and I was going to do the best that I could to be involved.
Right.
And if it wasn't, then fucking hell yeah, I'm definitely free to go.
Exactly.
See ya, I'm out. You don't have to worry about me coming around no more. But I definitely didn't want no surprise, because that was like my biggest fear, is that 18 years down the road, this kid is going to come, show up at my door, have all this emotional anger at me because she's going to say I stepped out and ran out and make all these lies up about me not wanting to be there and all this other shit. And then I'm the bad guy when I'm, and
then the legal ramifications.
And then, exactly. And I just was like, I don't want any of that. So I told her, I said, hey, if I have to, I'm getting an attorney and I will legally, I'm going to make this happen.
Right.
I don't want to do it this way. I just want to be civil. And I told her my reasons. She's like, well, it's not yours and we don't need to do this. There's no reason to do a testing and blah, 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 blah. And then she said that if I keep pressuring her, she was going to say that, basically say that I had sex with her without consent. And at that point, then, that's something that you don't threaten people with, especially falsely.
There's two things. It's rape and child molesting. You don't ever want to. You don't ever threaten people with faking that shit.
Exactly, because that's exactly what it would have been, as a false accusation.
Oh my God.
And at that point, I was like, and that's when I really knew the level of her toxicity, because I was like, all right, that's bad. If you would go that far.
Let's take a minute can we appreciate that for a second? Because there's a lot that goes back and forth, like, the Me Too movement and all this stuff. But goddamn, man, that's a horrible situation to put a guy in.
Oh, right, absolutely. There. And this,
because you just don't come back.
No,
from something like that.
Yeah, you don't.
Even if it's, if you make that claim, it becomes public and you're able to clear it, there's still, it sits in the back of people's heads.
Yep. They wonder. It puts question. It makes people question it, whether or not it happened or not.
Slash the guy's tires, pour bleach on his clothes, do all that stuff you want. But don't fucking go around telling some dude.
Yeah, definitely don't make false accusations.
Between that and then what it does to actual rape victims, how it
exactly.
It just muddies the fucking waters.
Makes it worse for them.
Holy fuck.
And at that point, I kind of like I was pissed then. And I basically said, you know what? If that's what you got to do, you do that. And I guarantee you're going to be ruined, because if you do that, all your dirty secrets, all the issues you've had over the past, all of it's coming out. And when it's all said and done, you will you're not, this child that you're so happy that you're having that you don't think is mine is not going to be in your custody. And the kid that you have now also not going to be in your custody, because you will be seen, I'll be able to prove you're not a good fit for parenting. And I told her, and I said, I don't want to do that.
Right.
But if I have to, if it comes down to defending my character and defending, my freedom, potential, charges that I could face, I'm going to fight for me. At that point, I'm not going to lay down and be one of them people that doesn't fight.
Yeah,
especially when I'm innocent.
On first blush, that sounds, like a cruel kind of overcorrection, but it's not.
No, it's like it's not.
It's
fucking desperation of the fear of what could happen. That's
holy fuck.
Like I don't ever try to be a mean and vindictive person. Like, I don't want cruelty or harm to anybody, man. I just want people to love. And when you when you're forced into a corner, you have to react accordingly, and that's what it is.
In an attempt to be fair, and it doesn't justify her saying that, I can see where, and you're in that kind of emotional state. Speaking from her point of view, and you're confused, and you're trying. She's in love with this other guy, and she wants to have this thing now, and then the whole idea of this potential child of not knowing who the father is, that could have been like an emotional.
Oh, absolutely.
I doubt she's this cruel person who's like, I'm gonna make this guy look like a rapist.
I'm sure it was an emotional reaction to the situation.
But that's one of those handful of things, though. You really got to be careful.
It's
saying
like one of them
God
things
damn.
where it's like it's like the wild animal, right? Mm-hmm. You like have a wild animal and you're trying to cage it and it freaks out. Yeah. That's what it was. Yep. She felt like she was caged and she freaked out and said that, and that in turn caused my reaction to feel like I was being put in a cage and freaked out, and I said what I said because I felt shitty about saying what I said. Even though I was no longer in love with this person, I don't want no harm to come of her. I want her to live a happy life. If I'm not what makes her happy, fine. That's fine. I get it. I'm an adult. I understand that. People don't always work.
Right.
She can be happy with whoever she wants to be. I totally get that. I don't want no harm on her or anybody. But like I said, you get those reactions where you're just, and I felt shitty for being that way after it happened. I was like, God, I can't believe I did that. But I felt like I was backed in a corner, and I was like,
nobody wins situation.
It is no win situation, and that was definitely when I realized that, that I'm definitely, we're not good for each other. Like, if two people can be that toxic and that cruel emotionally to each other, they're definitely not meant to be. You definitely just need to walk away.
Right.
And that's what I did.
Sometimes it takes that much of an extreme situation to see it.
No, absolutely, which is unfortunate because, all the emotional distress that we both went through, if we would have just admitted it and went our separate ways prior, could have prevented a lot of stress for both of us.
Right.
And, and as far as I know that, I don't keep tabs on her. I know for a while I feel like she was keeping tabs on me. She claims people were just telling her stuff, whatever. I don't know that that's true, but I know that they got married, they had a kid, and as far as I know, they're happy and still together. Like I said, I don't keep tabs on them, so I don't know, but that's all I know. And if they are, good for them.
Right.
I'm glad it worked out for her.
Definitely.
I'm glad that she got, because one thing about her, she was a great parent to her daughter, with the means that she had, and she put her daughter before everything else, and that was the one thing, despite all her self-esteem issues, the one thing that she was proud of was being a parent, because that was something she was good at, and she always wanted another baby, but didn't think that she could have another baby, because doctors told her that she wasn't going to be able to have another kid after she had her first kid, and that's all she ever wanted was another baby, and she got it, so kudos to her, and I'm happy for her.
Exactly. And it's good. I mean, as bad as that claim was, again, I think we're both in agreement that it was an emotional reaction.
I think
as wrong
so.
as it is.
I do. I mean,
we're glad that she's happy.
Yeah, I definitely am. Like I said, because things happen how they're supposed to happen. Sometimes it's not good, and sometimes it takes an extreme dark event like that, so you can see that without darkness, there is no light.
Right.
That's simple as that.
Right.
Because of that situation, I grew as a person. Like, I went through a whole self analysis and did a lot of reevaluating and a lot of soul searching, and I changed a lot. Like, my whole outlook on life is way different than, and had I not been through that situation, it wouldn't be what it is.
Right.
So even though there was a lot of negatives, it had very positive effects, and I'm where I need to be.